Right, let's get straight into it. While the international break rolls on and fans sit idle waiting for club football to return, behind the scenes at Celtic, things are heating up in a way that no pause in fixtures can cool down. What was supposed to be a moment for reflection and regrouping has instead exposed even deeper cracks between the boardroom and the stands. And if this week's meeting between Celtic officials and fan organizations was meant to mend bridges, well, it looks like they forgot the cement. The latest developments are centered around a closed-door discussion held on Monday involving Celtic board members and representatives from several supporter groups, most notably the Celtic Fans Collective. Now, meetings like these are often cloaked in vague statements and PR spin, but this time, both parties had agreed to share meeting minutes, if, and only if, they could agree on the wording. And judging by what's come out so far, agreement might be a long shot. Let's start with the collective's version of events, which paints a picture of a club completely out of step with its fan base. According to their summary, the group came in with serious questions, backed by a petition signed by over 400 individuals, including several prominent voices in the Celtic community. These weren't trivial complaints. They raised issues about the long-term footballing vision of the club, concerns over stagnant transfer policies, a lack of modernization both on and off the pitch, unaddressed results from a major fan survey, the ongoing fallout from the Firehurst inquiry, and even the rapidly deteriorating match-day experience at Celtic Park. Everything from ticket prices to supporter engagement was on the table. But more than that, they went straight for the jugular, stating clearly that they believe the positions of Michael Nicholson and Chris McKay at the club are no longer tenable. That's not a polite nudge for improvement. That's a full-blown vote of no confidence. Now, in a truly productive meeting, you'd expect those points to be acknowledged, maybe even debated earnestly. But instead, the collectives say the overall tone from the Celtic board was one of arrogance, a lack of self-awareness, and, perhaps most damningly, zero accountability. Time and again, the club pointed to communication issues as the real problem, rather than confronting the structural or cultural flaws that fans have been shouting about for months, if not years. It gets worse. When the club was asked about its transfer strategy, they apparently blamed everything from tax laws in various countries to UEFA's spending rules as reasons why they couldn't compete in the market. Let's be honest, those are challenges, sure, but they're not unique to Celtic. Every club in Europe operates under the same constraints. So when Celtic trots out these excuses, it doesn't sound like strategic planning. It sounds like smoke and mirrors. The collective didn't hold back on calling this out. And when they pressed further, asking who exactly signs off on these transfer decisions and whether there's any real ambition to act like a top club, the board responded with something that sounds straight out of a satire. They said emails are sent to board members for authorization. Right, emails. Because nothing says modern elite football club like major financial decisions being bounced around like a group chat on a Tuesday night. But the issue that seemed to cause the biggest rupture in trust was one that's been lingering for some time. The allegation that a senior club official briefed against manager Brendan Rodgers to the press. The club, through Michael Nicholson, labeled the matter closed and offered nothing more than a vague reference to a conversation between the board and the manager. That was it. No transparency, no details, no accountability. And that, really, seems to be the theme of the entire meeting. No accountability. The collective walked away not only disappointed, but more convinced than ever that the current leadership structure is broken beyond repair. They said the meeting didn't just fail to address concerns. It actually strengthened their belief that real, urgent change is needed at Celtic. That's a scathing verdict, and one that speaks volumes about where we're heading if something doesn't shift soon. Now, in a bizarre twist, the club came out with its own summary shortly after, and somehow, they claim the meeting was productive. According to their version, they answered questions openly and even committed to certain actions, like including supporters in upcoming discussions with Police Scotland over the Firehurst report. They also mentioned reviewing supporter engagement strategies and progressing with a new safe-standing working group. But even in this productive recap, there's a lot that doesn't quite sit right. For starters, many of the initiatives they highlighted weren't even mentioned in the collective statement. That raises eyebrows. Are these actual plans that came from the meeting, or just add-ons to make it sound like progress is being made? More importantly, The club still seems to be treating fan unrest as a communications problem rather than a leadership crisis. They're not asking why so many fans are unhappy. They're just trying to figure out how to make them less noisy about it. That's a dangerous misread of the situation. Because let's be clear, the frustration from fans isn't just about a few bad transfer windows or some dodgy ticketing decisions. It's about the direction of the entire club. Celtic, a club with a proud European pedigree, has regressed from being a knockout stage team in the Champions League to struggling in the Europa League. The atmosphere at Celtic Park, once electric, now often feels lifeless. And even the stadium itself, according to many who attend regularly, is starting to show signs of neglect. Yet somehow, the men in charge continue to act as if they're steering the ship flawlessly. You'd think that kind of disconnect would be hard to maintain, but somehow they manage it. Whether it's through staged PR responses or vague business language, the boardroom seems to be living in its own little bubble, completely insulated from the reality on the ground. And maybe that's the scariest part. Not just that they're out of touch, but that they genuinely seem to believe they're doing a fantastic job. So where do we go from here? That's the million-pound question. The collective have made it clear that they're not backing down. They believe more strongly than ever that change is essential, and it sounds like they're gearing up for more action after the international break. What form that action takes remains to be seen, but one thing's certain, this isn't going away. And fans are now left to wrestle with a brutal dilemma. Do you push for change knowing it might bring short-term pain? Maybe missing out on trophies, maybe even slipping further in Europe? Or do you stay quiet, let things drift, and risk watching the club slowly become a shadow of its former self? It's not an easy question. And to make things worse, every form of protest carries its own risks. If fans start boycotting games or merchandise, could that hurt the team on the pitch? Could it create even more division? Possibly. But at the same time, if you don't make noise, nothing changes. There's already talk among supporters about a coordinated boycott of official merchandise. That's the kind of move that hits the club where it hurts without directly harming the team. And from the outside, it looks like retail is already taking a hit. So imagine what would happen if fans actually got organized and pulled together. That's real pressure. Other protest ideas are floating around too. Everything from visual demonstrations on match days to organized walkouts. The key challenge is finding a way to be loud without being destructive. And that's not easy, because everyone, at the end of the day, still wants Celtic to win. But they also want a club that listens, that respects its fans, and that operates like the elite institution it claims to be. As things stand, we're at a crossroads. The fans are mobilized. The board is under scrutiny. And the international break has given just enough breathing space for people to reflect on how bad things have actually become. But when the games return and the lights come back on at Celtic Park, all eyes will be watching, not just the players, but the power struggle unfolding in the background. Now let's dig a little deeper into where this might be going. Because as much as the last few days have exposed a growing divide, what's coming next could define the future of Celtic more than anything else that's happened off the pitch in recent years. The question on everyone's mind now is, what will the Celtic fans collective actually do with this momentum? There's a meeting scheduled next week in Glasgow, and all eyes will be on the outcome. This isn't just another catch-up. This could be the turning point where talk turns to action. After all, it's one thing to walk out of a meeting with strong words and a scathing review. It's another thing entirely to harness that frustration and turn it into something that shakes the foundations of the club. And make no mistake, that's exactly what many supporters now want. The problem is the fine balance between protest and support. Nobody wants to derail the team's domestic campaign. Nobody wants to create a toxic atmosphere for the players or the coaching staff. Brendan Rodgers, whatever your thoughts on his return, isn't the enemy here. The target is upstairs, the people who've sat comfortably in charge while standards slip, while ambition disappears, and while the club's image starts to resemble a business machine more than a footballing institution. And that brings us to an interesting development that's quietly popped up amidst all the noise. The club's job listing for a new head of business operations. At first glance, it might sound like a good thing, a sign that Celtic are finally trying to get their act together behind the scenes. But when you take a closer look at the role and what it's actually designed to do, you start to realize it's not exactly addressing the right problems. This new position, advertised just recently, is being framed as an effort to improve supporter satisfaction and deliver world-class supporter services. Sounds promising, right? Except when you read into the responsibilities, it becomes pretty clear this isn't about fan engagement in the way most supporters understand it. It's about managing club shops, overseeing e-commerce, handling ticketing operations, running hospitality, and planning non-match day events at the stadium. In short, it's a commercial role, designed to maximize revenue, not repair trust. And that right there is the issue. While fans are calling for structural change, accountability, and a footballing strategy that matches the club's stature, the board are responding with a fancy job title to oversee merchandise and stadium tours. It's the kind of move that might look good in a corporate presentation, but does absolutely nothing to address why fans are protesting in the first place. It's hard not to be cynical. There's a pattern here, and it's been going on for a while. The board continues to speak the language of business, while the supporters are crying out in the language of football. The disconnect is staggering. This isn't about minor gripes over ticket prices or food stalls anymore. It's about identity, ambition, and the soul of the club. Celtic, as a football institution, is at a crossroads. And if the people running the show can't see that, then maybe they're not the right people to be running it at all. The irony is that Celtic's current problems aren't even rooted in catastrophe. There hasn't been a complete collapse. The team is still in the fight domestically. There's still a structure, still a fan base, still a level of respect across Europe. But that's exactly why the frustration is boiling over, because fans can see what this club could be if it were run with vision and ambition. The potential is still there, and yet it feels like those at the top are content with coasting. That's why even the suggestion of a merchandise boycott is gaining traction. It's simple, targeted, and doesn't hurt the players. It hits the balance sheet and sends a message where it matters. You can shout all you want on social media, you can write letters and hold meetings, but when revenue takes a hit, people in suits start paying attention. And that might be the most effective way forward for supporters who want to drive change without damaging the team. Of course, it's not without its risks. The board could easily try to spin any drop in sales as part of wider economic trends or deflect blame altogether. But if it's coordinated, loud, and persistent, it becomes harder to ignore. It's one thing when a few fans stop buying shirts. It's another when thousands do. The power is there. It just needs to be focused. And alongside that, you've got the possibility of more visual protest around the stadium. That might be banners, displays, organized silence, or even walkouts. Whatever shape it takes, it needs to be smart. Because there's always the risk that poorly timed protests get used as scapegoats for poor results. We've seen that playbook before, clubs blaming off-field distractions for failures on the pitch. So anything that happens needs to be impossible to dismiss. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Whispers are swirling around the east end of Glasgow this morning, and they're growing louder by the hour. Could it really be true? Word on the street is that Celtic have pulled off one of the most astonishing coups in recent memory, snapping up none other than Spanish legend Sergio Ramos on what insiders are calling a lightning deal. The rumor broke late last night, just after midnight, when a photo, blurry and suspiciously cropped, began making the rounds on social media, apparently showing Ramos arriving at Glasgow airport under heavy security. Within minutes, Parkhead fan pages were ablaze, with speculation running wild that the 38-year-old former Real Madrid and Spain captain had agreed to a short-term contract with the Hoops. Club officials, as expected, have remained tight-lipped, neither confirming nor denying the chatter. But several sources close to the Celtic camp hinted that negotiations had been ongoing for weeks under the radar. One even claimed that manager Brendan Rodgers personally phoned Ramos to convince him of the club's ambitions in Europe this season. If true, it would be a sensational signing, not just for Celtic, but for Scottish football as a whole. Ramos, known for his fierce leadership, uncompromising tackles, and knack for late goals, would instantly bring world-class experience to a young Celtic backline. Some insiders believe the move was sparked by recent defensive woes, with Rodgers eager for a commanding presence at the heart of defense. Fans outside Celtic Park this morning were buzzing with disbelief. "It's pure madness, in the best way," laughed one supporter, clutching his scarf. Ramos and the Hoops. I'll believe it when I see him lifting someone off the turf at Ibrox. No official announcement has surfaced yet, but the rumor refuses to die. Whether it's smoke without fire or the dawn of a new Parkhead era, one thing's certain: Glasgow hasn't seen gossip like this in years. If the sheriff really has arrived, Scottish strikers might just start watching their backs. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.